Hey everyone, this is Anthony Alaka with Torrey Hills Capital, and I want to welcome you to the BetterLIfe Pharma podcast for May 18th, 2021. Hope everyone is doing well under the circumstances, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. We are very excited to bring you BetterLIfe Pharma. A company has a pipeline of drug candidates that include 3 compelling and differentiated assets. BetterLife's drug pipeline includes psychedelic drugs for the treatment of major depressive disorders and other neuropsychiatric disorders. It also includes antiviral drugs to address early stage COVID infection and HPV in women. BetterLife Pharma trades on the OTC market under the ticker BETRF and on the CSE exchange under the ticker symbol BETR. Company's shares are currently trading with a market cap of roughly 32 million US. We feel that there is plenty of upside as the company is positioned to take advantage of the growing market for novel psychedelic and antiviral drugs. And with us today to discuss BetterLIfe Pharma and the company's strategy going forward is the company's CEO, Ahmad Doroudian. And we also have with us Dr. Mark Swaim, editor of BioPub and Torrey Hills Capital's resident expert on all things biotech and pharma. Welcome to you both, gentlemen. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony. Great to be here.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you, and I'm really excited for you to share the story with our group today. And thanks for taking the time to bring us up to speed on the company. Before we get started, I just want to mention that if our viewers have any questions during the presentation, I think the best way to ask is to just simply type your question into the Q&A box, and we'll make sure that it gets read. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Swaim for some opening comments. Then, excuse me, Ahmad Doroudian will take us through the investor presentation, then we'll open it up for Q&A. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Anthony. Happy to be here, and welcome to my colleague, Dr. Doroudian. BetterLife is a company we follow favorably at BioPub. We think it's a very interesting, novel investment with a lot of room to roll here. As somebody who used to treat hepatitis C in the days before the advent of the oral drugs for hepatitis C, remember that we used interferon for that virus, and when another single-stranded RNA virus became a major global health problem, i.e. corona, what first hit me is, why isn't anybody trying interferon alpha? And come to find out, the drug had been mothballed at the advent of the DAA era with drugs from Gilead and most of the other big players. And this company has reanimated the drug, not as easy a thing as I make it sound. It's actually taken them quite some laborious effort to get the drug into a form that the FDA will authorize using. But if you know virology and know single-stranded RNA viruses, this virus, coronavirus, is likely to run from this drug. The downside of treating hep C with interferon in that era was systemic administration, which tended to cause high fevers, constitutional symptoms, fever, neuropsychiatric problems. BetterLife, as Dr. Ahmad is going to discuss, is planning to use the agent in a nebulized or inhaled fashion to get right to the lungs where the action is, which allows giving far more interferon and without fever. And the company also has a very interesting portfolio of novel neuropsychiatric agents that I have to say, I frankly think has considerable promise. I'm on board with this situation because I like what I see, I enthuse about it. And frankly, it's hard to really think offhand of a company with a more auspiciously placed antiviral program for corona. In my opinion, therapeutics are really where it's at. Vaccines, we're not going to get everybody to get a vaccine, and we know of instances where people get infected despite vaccines. And then meanwhile, the company has an interesting idea of using long-term intranasal interferon as a prophylactic, which would supplant vaccination and probably, frankly, be more effective than that. So a lot of moving parts here, a lot that is very intellectually absorbing. And Dr. Doroudian, I'll pass the torch to you and love to hear what you've got to tell us.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everyone, for joining. I'm just going to share my screen here so I can go through the presentation with you. I think this is my screen now.
Yep, we can see it.
Yes,
okay,
looks good.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, we're a biotech company with a very, experience management in developing drugs. And this is all about IND path, FDA approved products. And as Mark said, we have, let me see if I can, there we go. We have 3 drugs right now under development, 2 of them in the psychedelics. This is 2nd generation psychedelics, and 1 in the antiviral space. The 2 psychedelic ones are not new molecules, so there's a long established history. What's new is that we have patented manufacturing process that has allowed us to make these without touching anything that is controlled or hallucinogenic. So the first compound, the lead one, is TD0148A. This is 2-bromo-LSD, which is analog of LSD. It's for major depressive disorder. We plan to do an IND filing first quarter of next year. And our IP is around 2 issued patents these are manufacturing patents that eliminate controlled substance or regulatory issues. As you can imagine right now, LSD and ibogaine and psilocybin, anything that's hallucinogenic, has a lot of different restrictions and regulations to manufacture, to distribute, to handle, to give to patients. So our plan is different. Our plan is, while all these other groups are developing LSD type or other hallucinogenic treatments that require medical monitoring and you have to be there, we are developing drugs that can be dispensed by a pharmacy and you can use it at home. So it's a completely different economics, which we believe is much more practical if you, as most of these numbers show, if you're going to treat 20 million new patients in mental health disorders, it would be hard to treat 20 million new patients in clinics, all of them. It's much easier if they're outpatient, and like antibiotics, you can get the drug from your pharmacy, and then you per instructions you treat yourself at home. So the second compound, TD010 dihydrohinochiol, again orally administered for benzodiazepine dependency. This is very interesting. It's been around for quite a long time. We plan to do an IND filing Q1 2022, and we have filed a method of use patent pending. The closest thing I can compare to this is those of you who are familiar with the cannabis space. There were people who were, using cannabis, a variety of cannabis derivatives and CBD, and there was a couple of groups that basically took almost exactly the same compounds in liquid or other formats and filed an IND and took it through the FDA approval, and one being GW Pharma. So this is what our model is like GW Pharma for compounds like this that have been around a long time, but no one has really taken a pure way, created an IND package that FDA has blessed, and then took it through clinical trials for approval. The third product, AP003, this is actually our most advanced. We were working on this prior to heading into the pandemic for the treatment of HPV. That's how we got introduced to Mark and his expertise in interferon. Very potent antiviral agent. It's been around for 30-some years for the treatment of hepatitis and other ailments. And at the beginning of last year, when COVID hit, we developed a formulation that can be inhaled to treat COVID infection, early stage COVID infection. We plan to again file an IND later this year, and we have filed a very strong composition and formulation patent pending. So I'm going to go to the next slide. This is our pipeline. As I mentioned, you see the top 2 on the neuropsychiatry and 03 on the antiviral. And we think that we are in a very, very good space with de-risked asset. These products, these substances, the efficacy is known, lots of safety data, and our proprietary, manufacturing and method of use patents give us an advantage in getting, first to market for really unmet needs in both of these areas. And those of you who know that mental health is becoming an explosive category right now, going forward. And I'm just going to go and start with the TD0148A for potential treatment of major depressive disorders. This product, a little bit of background. Right now, if you wanted to make 2-bromo-LSD, you have to start with LSD. So that means you are subject to lots of restrictions and regulations and monitoring and so on. But 2-bromo-LSD itself is not a controlled substance. So, but because it's synthesized from LSD, then you become subject to that. We have obviated that. We've gone around this. This compound was invented by Albert Hofmann, the chemist who invented LSD. That's a Swiss chemist, and shown to be non-hallucinogenic in humans and considered uninteresting. For the hardcore psychedelic crowd, this is not interesting. But in terms of a treatment, physicians, and a practical way that you can actually treat yourself for depression, other ailments, this is I think it's one of those potential silver bullets. So this is shown to be effective in cluster headache. There was a study in 2010 ran in patients in Germany with collaboration with Harvard that showed to be very effective in treating cluster headaches. Our proprietary process, we use ingredients that are not controlled. Our starting material is not LSD. There's no controlled substance intermediaries at any stage, and it has no residual LSD. And our manufacturing of final products will be free of any controlled substance. Then I'll show you in the next slide where the advantage of this. So if you look at the table, comparing TD0148A with psilocybin, LSD, and MDMA, you see that we don't use Schedule 1. There is formal human studies in all of these compounds. 0148A is not hallucinogenic, doesn't use list 1 precursors. It's not subject to UN Convention, illicit drug regulations. Is patient self-administered, and it's regulatory hurdles. Now, that second to last, patient self, for me, is the most important one in a way. I come from specialty pharma. I come from the cash flow and being able to sell a product practically that's economical. This is not some fantasy science that we hope that it will act somewhere and be a good product. It also, you have to look at the economics of it. And what we are looking at right now is between us and most of these other under development, it's very clearly distinguished, because to me, if you want to treat, as I mentioned, 20 million new patients, and you have to build health centers and clinics and monitor people, staff and lease payments and so on, versus self-administered, the economics of it is just not even comparable. So we think it's a much more practical way to use psychedelics to treat these patients much more effectively economically at a much larger scale. So our proprietary synthesis, this is a patent that was issued, eliminates regulatory hurdles and obviates the need for any kind of scheduled or controlled substance. We've also filed a method of use IP for treatment of major depressive disorder, treatment-resistant disorders, depression, and migraines, PTSD, and other neuropsychiatric disorders. There's a significant opportunity in this space. As you know, mental health is not a taboo anymore. There are athletes, celebrities, politicians that's come out, Prince Harry, you know, everybody's talking about mental health. So people seeking treatment is going to open up, but it's not something that is available right now, other than expensive clinics or therapists. Our chief psychedelic officer, Patrick Krupa, in fact, him and his partner were inventors of that patent who we acquired 6 months ago. Patrick runs a clinic in Cancun. It's an addiction clinic. He's been running for the last 12 years. So he's very familiar with treating patients with psychedelics. And he says it in firsthand, it's a lot easier than done when people have to be monitored because they're, hallucinating. So that's why he joined us to develop this treatment to, obviate all of that. And in terms of the market, really the numbers are all over the place, from single digit billions to, going to 25, $30 billion and beyond. And you can really take the number from anywhere you want, but we know there's significant opportunity opening up in this space for MDD, schizophrenia, OCD, anxiety, and other mental health disorders. So our first lead indication for 0148 would be MDD or TRD, and for additional potential indications, cluster headaches, migraines, PTSD, severe anxiety, and neuropathic pain. Timeline and development projections, right? We have spent the last 4 months working on the CMC and synthesis of this, again, making sure we don't touch anything that's controlled, or we don't have residual LSD in any part of the process. We have executed about 5 contracts with global players for the synthesis of this. And again, this is all generating FDA grade for our data for our IND package. So filing is expected to be in the first quarter of 2022, followed by phase 1 human studies, and then shortly after that, a phase 2 in MDD starting later next year. The next compound, this one was a bit of a low-hanging fruit. The hydrohonocule has been known for many years. It comes from magnolia bark extract. Again, similar to what happened with cannabis and CBD. Some companies were taking it, grinding it in a basement, or capsulating, or so on. There were a couple of companies that just did a pharma grade type work to take this through its path of registration with the FDA, like GW did. So that's where we are with this compound. This is the honocule is an active anti-anxiety ingredient, comes from magnolia bark. There are several animal studies that have shown that this to be effective. There are a couple of human clinical trials published, but it was given as an extract, and purity of it and all that wasn't really worked out. That's where we come in, and it's right now it's sold as nutraceutical. Again, similar comparison with cannabis and CBD type products. So we think that there's a significant opportunity again to develop this. It's not hallucinogenic. No proper human clinical trials have been conducted with the pure compound. That's where we come in, and but lots of anecdotal reports from rehab clinics claiming that the HHP is highly effective as an anti-anxiety. Our formulated, we have patented formulation to overcome poor bioavailability. This thing is very insoluble and poorly bioavailable, and our development is also patent. Covered by our method of use patent that we've just filed. So proprietary formulation and method of use patent pending. This was we just did that recently. DHHP is highly insoluble and not that bioavailable. So our patent formulation improves this bioavailability, gets rid of that issue, and our IP covers oral capsules, tablets, sublingual, and etc., and other delivery methods. Our filing covers treatment of anxiety, benzodiazepine dependency, and insomnia at the outset. Market opportunity, right now, benzodiazepine markets valued between 3.5, this is 2019 numbers, to going to 4 billion, a little over 4 billion by 2027. Rise in anxiety, and seizures and other disorders has taken this market even higher. Current lifestyles and COVID hasn't helped in the isolation that we've all had experienced the last year and a half is exacerbated this. Benzodiazepines are legally manufactured, but we're very, very highly addictive. So majority of the benzodiazepine users are at risk of dependency, and therefore, this is a great potential candidate for TD010. Our lead indication, therefore, will be benzodiazepine dependency, followed by anxiety and spasticity like MS. Projected timeline, very similar to TD0148A, and filing of the IND first quarter of next year, followed by healthy human subjects. And what we have done for the last 4 months, we have engaged with the top experts in this field. Adam Halberstadt, University of California, San Diego, Tom Laughlin, and Mass General, 30 years experience with the FDA, and major in the US military, Department of Veterans Affairs. He treated soldiers with PTSD. So we really consulted the top players in the field as far as hallucinogenic versus non-hallucinogenic, the practical matters, their belief in efficacy of BOL148 at 2-bromo LSD. And that convinced us that to put the best robust program to generate preclinical data, as well as that can be put in a proper IND package for FDA filing. Next, I'm just going to switch now to our antiviral drug. That's what Mark mentioned in his introduction. This is an interferon alpha 2B, and we've been working on this for, this is when the company was private. We've been working on this for the treatment of another virus when COVID started early last year. And we started looking at this, and coronavirus, as we all know, caused COVID-19. And we're looking at, we looked at the mechanism of action of this. There were some very early on studies that interferon alpha 2B could be active against COVID-19. That obviously our whole team, the CMC group, switched from development for HPV infection, which was a topical product, into a solution that can be nebulized and administered through the lungs. And it kind of made so much sense that the virus doesn't enter your liver or your kidney or your heart; it enters your lungs. That's where it should be. So early treatment with this shown to be effective. So it's a potential treatment of COVID-19. It was used in China, Wuhan, at the outset of the outbreak. There was a study done led by Dr. Eleanor Fish of Toronto General Hospital in Canada, and her colleagues in here in Vancouver, St. Paul's Hospital, and a group of physicians in Wuhan. They treated 77 patients, and it was shown to be very effective in early stage. None of the patients required hospitalization, and they recovered. So, and it's really was a simple thing in terms of interferons are known to be, they enhance your immune system in a way that early on the levels of protein that stop the virus from replicating go up, and it's very effective in stopping the virus. So After we saw that study was published in Frontiers of Immunology, we kind of fast-tracked that, and we developed this formulation that can be applied directly to the lung and restore your initial immune response to COVID-19. And actually, COVID is shown to reduce the level of interferon where it's infected and causes more damage as if not treated. So our first indication is early stage COVID, and as Mark said, we also want to develop a low dose format that you can apply to enhance your immune system before you're even infected. That could be just as effective as the vaccine, and not just for one virus. Now, here's what I want to put out there. All these vaccines and single drugs that are developed to attack the virus, by nature, viruses mutate, variants and things like that, pathogens. And eventually they develop resistance to vaccines or these drugs. They cannot develop resistance to interferons. And that's why we like this as a more all-encompassing part of a cocktail of treatment that, in a way, no one should die of COVID in a year or so. Once these treatments are established as a cocktail, just like HIV, we contain it with a cocktail of drugs right now very effectively. So we believe this product is absolutely essential. It will be part of the cocktail of treatment, and it would be, it would reduce the overall hospitalization rate, long-term tissue damage, and death. Again, market position for this is for us is part of that all-encompassing treatment. Early stage COVID is first 5 days where you're tested positive or you show symptoms. That's where this is applied, twice a day. You'll do it at home. You don't need to be in a clinic. And we want to position AP03 for early stage of not just COVID, but other viruses, MERS, SARS, and so on. And we believe, especially the low dose one, if you can imagine, if there was a stockpile of the low dose formulation last year at the outset of this pandemic, hospitals, military, police, schools, if they had this for the frontline people who were exposed to this, we could have saved a lot of lives. Our patent, we've spent close to $10–11 million developing this our own proprietary formulation, composition patent, and we filed for a composition patent. Interferon Alpha 2B was really made by Merck for years and years, and marketed as Intron A for treatment of hepatitis. And when we contacted them, this goes about 3 years ago, they had basically said they are exiting that because of hepatitis. There are other treatments for it, and this is a biologic, extremely hard to make. So we kind of started from scratch. We worked with Fujifilm of UK and National Research Council here. We developed our own cell line, and then through a cloning procedure, we are able to manufacture the only isoform-free interferon. This is the most pure form of interferon, and we got very excited in developing that. Now we are doing a scale-up of this in LIST labs in California.
It's very difficult to do, Ahmad. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. This was quite a process, taking this from initial sequencing of the amino acids all the way up to where we are right now. And we think strategically we will be the only group in North America that will have capability to manufacture interferon alpha 2B in a large scale. The other places in the world, countries that have this, are China and Cuba. So we have composition patent, around this for manufacturing the AP003, and we expect this to be the only isoform-free interferon on the market. Patent protection may extend to cover use of isoform-free interferon to treat COVID-19. So we we've submitted a patent for formulation, and the patent pending process, it hasn't been issued yet, but patent pending process improves stability of interferon, so allows for longer shelf life and delivery. We are also filed for treatment and prevention of prophylaxis that I mentioned to you. So we're excited about this family of patents and how it positions us using this very potent antiviral, not just to treat COVID, not just to prevent it, but other pandemics, which, we know there will be other pandemics on the horizon. So our development plans, we have parallel process. One is through setting up our IND package for the FDA through this proprietary formulation that we have and the scale up we're doing in California, as well as we're doing a proof of concept clinical study, phase 1/2, to start in Chile, Catholic University Santiago, in a few weeks' time. Everything is set up, clinical protocol. The researchers there are quite familiar with COVID and running COVID studies in collaboration with Canadian colleagues, and Dr. Fish would be a co-investigator of that study. So we think by the end of this year, we'll have a very comprehensive package to file with the FDA. Again, this is not a new drug. It's de-risked in a lot of ways, and our positioning as the only group that can supply this is just a good advantage. My team, this team has been together, most of the team on the left side, for the last 3.5, 4 years. The new folks are Patrick and Justin, the psychedelic guys, but again, there are no rookies here. We all have 25 plus years experience in various parts of the drug development, preclinical and clinical. Patrick, as I mentioned to you, Patrick Krupa runs a Clear Sky recovery treatment clinic in Cancun, and has been in the psychedelic space for at least 20 years. And Justin is the chemist, synthetic chemist that developed these non-hallucinogenic pathways to manufacture these. On the right are advisors from various parts. I mentioned to you Dr. Tom Loughran from the Veterans Affairs and FDA, and Eleanor Fish from University of Toronto and the infectious disease area. And again, the whole the team you see here manages approximately 36 other consultant service providers, and from manufacturing to regulatory to clinical. So this is a very my job is really managing the balance sheet, make sure the company's capitalized properly, and raise funds as we go along with delivering shareholder value. I've 25 plus years in managing public companies and taking them from a startup to a NASDAQ listed type process. So we have about 60 million shares outstanding. This is our share cap, and we are the warrants that you see, the 7 million warrants have expired. That actually just in the middle of that column. And again, it's a fairly tight share capital. We think we have a lot of upside here in comparables. I don't have a comp table here though, but on both of those areas of psychedelics and antiviral, if you look at any of the comps with what I think a lot, our story is a lot more de-risked, and I'm looking forward to really this year to delivering significant value to these shares as we go on. I'm going to stop here. Thank you everyone for paying attention, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
One comment I made for audience, if they're a little confused on the hallucinogenic program, the idea of using 2-bromo-LSD to treat depression is not simply a shot in the dark. Let's hope we're lucky. The drug is a known partial agonist of the 5-HT2 receptor. That's the same mechanism by which the drug risperidone works as augmentation therapy for depression. It's pretty effective. So there's a highly likely preclinical kind of probability that I think this will work. So
Yeah, thank you for that, Mark, and thanks, Ahmad, for that presentation. At this time, I do want to open it up for questions. We have one in queue already. If you do have a question, simply type it into the Q&A box. Wait a minute for some questions to come in. One of the questions someone's asking, Ahmad, is lead candidate for major, and I'm just going to read this verbatim, lead candidate for major depressive disorder. In considering the slide with the header MDMA, did the success of the first MDMA phase 3 trial prior to its success create positive buzz for FDA IND pathways for synthesis from LSD?
I'm not that familiar with the synthesis of MDMA. I think, again, for our whole differentiation here is around the regulatory and restrictions of handling, and obviously any kind of positive development helps us. But where we are differentiated is that we are not really going through a hallucinogenic path, so we're not subject to most of those restrictions. Or we think we'll be able to advance these a lot faster because, you know, if the substance is not restricted, you can recruit patients faster. You can have multiple centers that handle this. They don't need vaults and, you know, security clearance and alarms and things like that. So it's a completely different approach. I don't know the answer to something that's specific to MDMA.
Okay, thank you. What incentives do you have in place to retain such a great and diversified group of people?
The management that's been with me, and again, we're all shareholders, and you know, I think partly is they are highly experienced individuals that are very passionate about and believe in the treatment, the science, as well as, you know, that this will be something that they like to get through it and make a difference, make an impact. So it's a combination of things. And my you know, relationship with the team is quite, you know, we have a flat structure that people are again, in a professional sense, they can make a difference in what they're doing. So, I mean, there's not one element I can point to, but I like to think that I'm a fairly experienced manager of people that knows how to, you know, bring the best in the team and make sure they're executing.
Yeah, and I think the potential for what you have right now, I think that alone would be enough to keep the people there. And I mean, I think you are very close to seeing some pretty incredible data. In terms of tackling other pandemics, would the formulation for the antiviral have to change with each virus? And if so, like how long would it take to, you know, adapt to a new virus?
No, I think for the especially for the prevention and prophylaxis, no, we think that's a standard low dose formulation that has to be. Now, in terms of the for COVID, obviously that's where we've been researching to make this first indication. Is, you know, we have a lot of data in terms of how much we have to do, what the dosing will be. Now, would there be a dose adjustment for the other type of viruses? I think there might be, but those are simpler cross-reference studies that you can do to, you know, to show as part of your additional indication against the virus. So I don't think so, but again, we haven't really tested this exhaustively against other viruses, but we think that it will be just a matter of dose adjustment. Mark, you wanna, as a physician, I think you probably have a better sense of how this works.
It's a good question. I mean, think of nature as having spent eons optimizing interferon. In the days of using interferon alpha to treat hep C, there were a number of attempts at improving upon the amino acid sequence to optimize it and get better kill, and those actually did not succeed. It's just good old native original interferon cloned right from a patient really is very effective. And I think the idea that you'd have to go dancing and altering structure to keep up with wild type viruses that come down nature's pike, no, probably not. I think this one will work. And, Ahmad, frankly, I'd much rather have twice daily intranasal interferon than a vaccine, because it's probably going to keep me from getting the cold and the flu as well. I'm just being honest. So.
Yeah, with the boost to the immune system for sure.
Yeah.
Looking forward, can you give any projections on what the CapEx would be to complete the FDA trials through phase 3?
The full-blown CapEx for phase 3 is something close to like $60 million. These are, again, you don't necessarily want to raise all of this all at once. Obviously, it's done in stages, and every stage you carefully deploy the capital to make sure you generate the most data. And companies of this size don't really necessarily make it to the end of phase 3. We're not a commercial company. We develop this to a certain stage that can be partnered with big pharma or acquired by big pharma, any of these assets. So that's a typical model for micro cap biotech companies. So our vision is not really to finance this through, we want to de-risk it through phase 2 level, and then look for the best way. If it means at that time we can raise the capital much more efficiently and accretively to develop ourselves, of course. But I think the way this works is, for when it gets to that point, you want that big pharma experience and boots on the ground to be able to effectively and most competently commercialize this. And then that's the partnership comes in, that I always equate this to something like mining. That when you discover a mine, you develop it, you have a proof of concept, you do the testing. That's a junior company, and then it takes a major gold producer to actually build the mine, and that's kind of what we're looking at. So while that budget is known to us, we think we're going to carefully manage this through its different phases, that either through a partnership or raising the money, such as the most cost-efficient way to raise that capital.
Yeah, and we've seen that, excuse me, with some of our other clients, where they take a a drug along and they get to a certain point, and then
right.
They partner up with big pharma. In terms of the TD 0148A, because of the non-hallucinogenic approach to using it, how much does that speed up the potential for commercialization compared to how other companies are doing it?
I think it speeds up tremendously. Again, a huge part of running these trials and the restrictions that you face when they are hallucinogenic, patient recruitment, what places are able to treat these patients, have the proper licenses, and we don't have any of that. So we think this will really this will give us a tremendous advantage in developing these, in terms of running multi-center trials and being able to recruit patients much more rapidly to put this through. So, I don't know the exact percentage of the timing that this will cut, but from what we have seen, recruiting patients is usually quite time consuming. And if you're faced with restrictions and handling of a certain compound, it even adds more complexities. So
Yeah. Not only that, but with the hallucinogenic effects that maybe other companies are using, I mean, you just, like you said, I mean, you can't just give that drug to someone. They have to be supervised the entire time,
right.
correct?
Well, yeah, when we looked at these assets, 6 months ago, that's what got me interested. Because I come from commercials as specialty pharma. I have commercialized products. I have seen, I know the economics of this. It's good to show efficacy and say LSD works, but to practically treat 10 million patients with it is a completely different metrics, completely different economics. And that's what excites me. And I go back to a little bit of comparison with cannabis space, building clinics. We're going to have physicians to treat everybody with, this type of cannabis, that type of cannabis, versus a treatment you can get like GW did, that is dispensed at a pharmacy under instruction of a doctor, a prescription, then you take it home. So that's a completely different, I know our cost, I know where our pricing is going to land with these products. I know my patient population, as best as we can estimate it. We have a very detailed NPV model that shows the valuation of these products are quite large, in terms of anything that we can look at. But based on reality, based on practical reality of a patient-friendly, outpatient, administered type drug that is practical, as opposed to, we're going to build all these clinics and people are going to go there for treatment.
Yeah, just being able to go to a pharmacy and pick up a pill and just be able to take it is.
I actually used the comparison the other day in one of my presentations to computers. When personal computers were invented and developed, imagine if you want to use a personal computer, imagine if you had to go to a science lab or a university or a research facility to use it, as opposed to being able to take it home. What is the difference? I know there's Watson, there's AI, there's supercomputers. There's room for that. We need those, but they're very limited. But personal computer they can take home is a completely different market. So that's the difference between non-hallucinogenics and these very potent hallucinogenic psychedelics like LSD.
Yeah. Are you thinking about a possible uplisting to NASDAQ?
Yes, actually, that process is in motion. We have hired an investment banking group out of New York to put that in place. So we're hoping to be able to, get that officially started, I think, sometime in this third quarter of this year.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. So, so I know a lot of people are excited about the COVID vaccine, right? And they think COVID's pretty much over and manageable at this point. And
Not
obviously
true.
that's not the case. Exactly. So, so can you talk about the fact that we are still going to need obviously some sort of an antiviral or something,
Right.
And just because there are vaccines, that it's not really a foolproof way of getting rid of COVID.
Right. Actually, we probably know this firsthand better than almost any other group. When we were developing the topical cream for HPV virus, this is about 4 years ago when we started this work, everybody was talking about, well, why are you doing this? There is vaccine against HPV, Gardasil. It's been around since 2006. So 15 years after the rollout by Merck and Glaxo of a very effective, 100% effective vaccine globally, 5.5 million new cases of HPV were reported in the US last year.
Wow.
In the US alone. Incidence of cervical cancer will be on the rise, according to WHO and CDC, not just in developed countries, but also, but mostly in, emerging economies. Now, when we looked at that, we did a lot of granular studies on why is this happening. HPV vaccine in the US right now, their vaccination rate is at 60%, 60, and this is years after the introduction of that vaccine. Japan stopped vaccinating girls with that because of bad press and side effects and the different reports. So when you look at COVID, obviously HPV is not as potent and it's not as deadly as COVID, but when you look at people's perception of vaccination, the reach of this thing, we think it will be years that everybody is really effectively vaccinated. But if it's a recurring thing, you have to go for the second dose, and then every shot, like the flu. We think there will be need for treatments for years to come.
Surveys here suggest in the United States that at best asymptotically will close in on about 70% vaccination rate the first go around, which is not very good. So.
Would this
Right.
almost be more like comparable to like getting the Z-Pack if you have a flu, if you have the flu, where it would reduce the term of your ill sickness?
Yeah, I think, again, there's a lot of, this is new, there's a lot of unknowns against this, unknown with COVID and the vaccines that are out there. But we think everybody should be vaccinated. I'm a scientist, I believe in vaccination, but I know the reach of this, the people who are just don't believe in it, or it's not effective. There are people who've been vaccinated and have been infected again. So there will be, again, our numbers are not based on treating millions and millions of people. Our numbers and the patient population we're addressing is in the hundreds of thousands globally annually. So if you look at 2-3 other companies that are developing treatments, like one is Humanigen. Their numbers, Roth Capital has a target for them, and they're trading over $1 billion market cap. They're treating 79,000 patients a year. This is not, we don't want to treat 15 million a year. Ours is between 250 to 300,000 patients. So we believe, 30% of US active military personnel are refusing to take the vaccine. There's some data from these well-established organizations that I know how their people are reacting or behaving for this vaccination. So that's unfortunate, but again, there will be need for treatments for years to come, like HIV. I mean, how many years has been HIV? A need for a good cocktail of treatment that's very effective is going to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And when you talk about the comparison in terms of the valuations that some of these other companies are getting, we feel like BetterLife is a great opportunity to get in early now, I think, for sure. Realizing you might be acquired beforehand, can you hazard a guess as to the earliest date you might eventually get a FDA approval?
I think, again, this is we are using known entities. These are not new drugs. So once you get close to close to phase 2 or the end of the phase 2 trial is really when you start discussing partnerships or acquisitions or these assets in our hands right now for the capabilities that we have are perfect. It gets to a point that a bigger organization, much more established, needs it to look at, commercial side. So whether it be, end of next year or sooner, again, I can't really guess that. Depend on how good the data is going to be and how excited we'll be. But we know where the natural partners are. We know the players, especially on the antiviral side, who are the big pharma that are most advanced in terms of their understanding what this space is. And this would be a natural addition to a set of assets that they already have.
Yeah, I know I kind of put you on the spot with asking about a timeline. I appreciate that that answer. One other question is why Chile for trials?
Oh, very good question. Chile is, well, initially we had planned to do these trials in Australia. So we did a lot of groundwork in Australia, and there's a lot of tax incentives to do this in Australia. And at that time, Australians are very, very good at choking pandemics. And they've done that very effectively with other infections. And while we were setting up our plans, Australian cases went from, I think at the height of it was 1,000 cases a day to under, 10. So patient recruitment and getting these centers in a big country like Australia became very, very challenging. Our advisor, Eleanor Fish, the lady who ran the study in Wuhan, said she was involved in another trial in Chile with her colleagues involving COVID. And she's the one who introduced us to the team. Chile, unfortunately for them, is the cases are very high. It's one of the most vaccinated countries. Half the population lives in Santiago. It's a long, narrow country, but so they very early on they started vaccinating, and they have again one of the highest rated vaccinations. But if you look at it, I think I checked it yesterday, there were 6,000 new cases of COVID reported in Chile. Now, I want to give you a comparison. Chile has a population of 18 million. Indonesia has a population of 270 million. Indonesia reported 3,000 infections yesterday, and Chile is around 6,000. That's actually presented a couple of issues because a couple of times Santiago has gone into shutdown because of this. The cases are so high. So, and secondly, the cost. Cost is a fraction of what it would have been in Australia. So when we had a credible researcher with experience with COVID, having worked with Canadian researchers, so it checked all the boxes, and the prevalence of this, so it allows for rapid recruitment. It sort of made it ideal area for us to do this preliminary study.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate it. Well, we're right up against the hour, so I think we're going to leave it there for the day. I want to thank you, Ahmad and Mark, for both coming on today to get us up to speed on BetterLife's pipeline of drugs and anticipated milestones. And we definitely look forward to having you on again as following the company during this exciting time. Looks like you have a lot of great things going on. So we're really excited to follow the data and see how it all turns out.
Thanks. Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, you're welcome. In the meantime,
Okay.
you can get additional information on BetterLife Pharma at the company's comprehensive website at abetterlifepharma.com, including details on the company's current pipeline of drugs, as well as additional information and press releases. And I want to thank all of our attendees for taking the time today to learn about BetterLife Pharma. And I look forward to your feedback. I'll be sending out the feedback link right when we conclude today's meeting. And I look forward to getting your feedback and sharing it with Ahmad. But in the meantime, I want to again thank everyone. And until our next meeting, everyone be safe, be well, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Ahmad.
Thank you. Thanks,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye.